I'm ready to go.
Whenever you want.
I'm ready. I'm so used to having countdowns and five,
I
four.
know. I can give you one if you want.
No, 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 please no. Those
Okay.
make me nervous as hell.
Okay.
Um,
All right, guys, joining me today on Oral Sessions, we've got Tommy End on the show. What a bizarre couple of days for you. How are you doing?
I'm actually doing really well.
Good.
Yeah, no, I'm doing okay. Yeah, it's bittersweet, you know. And I think I said this a couple times, like on stream. I've said this like on my Twitter or my Instagram. It's so easy to jump into like being negative and like focus on all the stuff that didn't happen and whatnot. But man, at the same time, for 4 or 5 years, I got to do the one thing that I've always wanted to do on a really, really big scale. I got two WrestleManias. I got the NXT title. I made friends for life. I became a better performer, a better wrestler, and I got so many tools and connections and all these things that I built, with whilst being at the WWE, that there's more pros than cons really. And sure, and I'm sure we'll get into that part during this conversation, but the focus for me is on all the things that did go right and all the things that I did obtain and all the things that were given to me. And hey, there's been opportunities that were presented to me that make me go, wow, the fact that you even think that you wanted to put me in this position is like super cool. Better than anyone that in that company, things change sometimes literally 30 seconds before you go out. And
Yep.
that's happened to me on several occasions. It's always funny because I always think to myself, man, if people would only know all the things that almost happened, or all the things that were supposed to happen, or were supposed to be, or directions or pitches and all that stuff. And, that makes it cool. It's never as clear cut as people think it is.
Hmm.
And having that knowledge from being in the company for 4 or 5 years, is where I get a lot of satisfaction and a lot of like peace of mind.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's true. It's like you are now, no matter what, you're at least set up on a better course for the experience that you've gained,
Yep.
more of the notoriety that comes now with the name Tommy End for you. I
Yep.
mean, we're not going under Aleister Black anymore, but everyone
Yep.
understands that that's how we go here in the wrestling world, and we make these changes, and your fan base understands that and everything. But so what are some of these circumstances of things that could have been and things that were about to happen?
Hmm.
What are some of those?
So one of the cool pitches for me was that for a moment when I had the match with AJ, one of the things that leading up to WrestleMania, was that during the end of my match with AJ, Undertaker appeared and helped me, save me, stop the beat down that the Good Brothers gave me. Um, One of the pitches was that at WrestleMania, it was going to be the other way around. So it was AJ and Taker, and one of the pitches was that towards the end of that match, the Good Brothers would come out, or something to that extent, and I would be the one to help Taker. And I always thought that was like the fact that they even considered that was like wow, you know what I mean? It was very
Yeah.
cool. One of the other things that was always very cool is that Heyman's idea was to have either Samoa Joe or Brock Lesnar come into the room at the time. And we like the
When you
thing
were
we
doing
built.
those promos in the back, you mean?
Yes. So the
Yeah.
thing was, they were supposed to progress. Obviously, they never progressed. They always stayed the same, which is one of my biggest, regrets, because I always wanted them to be much more than they were. I wanted them to
Mhm.
have different verbiage and to kind of like, expand. And I did what I could with them, which is, very minimal. And Heyman fought tooth and nail for it. But at the end of the day, there's like, obviously, if there's a no, there's a no. You can't argue the no all the time. Um, and one of the things that we set course out to do was eventually having an interaction between either me or Samoa Joe, Brock Lesnar or Samoa Joe, that would send where I would cut this promo room, and Lesnar would just come through this from the darkness and would just choke me out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it would set up something similar to that. But again, the people have to understand that these are pitches. This is not a set in stone thing. This is the course we're planning. These are all ideas that people are having and courses that we're plotting and planning. They pan out, they might not pan out. They might sometimes towards the end of where you're going with the pitch and the pitch is being used, towards the end of it, they decide to go take a 180 instead of like going this way. They're going to go that way, and they're going to go different routes. And I'm sure that if I sit on it for a while, like more things will pop into my head in terms of like things that were supposed to be. But yeah, the company is full of surprises. I think it's definitely
one way to put it.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah. For good and bad, it's full of surprises. But like I said, like I don't really have a lot of things that I have to complain about. Again, yeah, there's been super negative things, and obviously my ending with the company is very questionable, But I know why, and maybe one day we'll talk about that. But right now, it's just not that time. It's not something I want to focus on. But it's been good. It's been really, really good these last 2 or 3 days. Like the feedback's been great. Me and my wife started documenting basically like every day. We kind of like see documents. Like we'll do a little bit of a journal, and building back up to getting into the ring with other places, other promotions, other companies, and we're just kind of like taking it step by step and day by day, and kind of like turning that into a little documentary.
Great. I mean, that's a great way to sort of utilize your time. And it is, I think just like mentally processing everything that's going on. I mean, I'm sure there's so many different ups and downs, and sometimes it's hard to kind of get a firm grasp on even how you feel, because something like that comes out of left field that you're so unprepared for. You can only handle it to whatever capacity that you're able to do that. I mean, I'm sure that that's got to be difficult, of just sort of managing, like staying positive about things, but also, I guess, just dealing with the reality of what happened and have it be so unexpected.
I think what helps and has helped, there's 2 things. The support, the continue, because even now there's like a lot of people that are still reaching out. Actually, right before I got on, Edge called me. I couldn't pick up because I was literally getting into this. But there's been such a reaction. There's been such a reaction and an ongoing reaction on my release that it made it bearable. I think being released is one thing, but if you're being released and there was literally no response to your release, I feel that's very, very, very bleak, very dark, and I think that can get into your head. But because there's been such an outpour of support from friends, colleagues, family, and fans, most importantly, it's helped. And one of the things that also really helped is that I have spoken to a lot of like higher ups, even the person that I initially had on the phone to have the conversation, and they're all kind of like, they don't understand it. I think throughout the entire company, there's okay, but why him? And it's a good feeling people care, and it's a good feeling that like the perception that you have as to, okay, but why am I being let go, is shared by many high up in the company that are like very close to the main boss, and that gives comfort,
it just feels like everything's such a big question mark right now, kind of for everybody to see something like that, and to see somebody like you being let go. And, I think that it's been a lot of the same sentiment for Ruby Riott as well, of like, why you have these talented people here that bring so much to the table and bring this unique perspective, bring this whole new character to the ring, this whole new audience, and for it to not work for them just doesn't make sense. It's so confusing.
Yeah, I think that I think one of the biggest, dare I call it an issue is that there is not enough focus on people around the main people being pushed.
Mhm.
You have to have a continuous stream of people being built up, and people being able to get revered by fans and being built up through the eyes of the fans, so that people care. And I think, I think that is a problem, and nothing that I'm saying right now is shocking news, because I think that's the main consensus with a lot of people, is that there is not enough focus on multiple people, because why would you not make everyone you're utilizing strong, and in some capacity, like give them notoriety, or give them that, that part where fans can generally, rile against them, or be for them. But like, you talked about, it is a very busy, ever-changing landscape, and you can only do so much. And as a talent, you can also only do so much. Producers can only do so much. Creative writing staff can only do so much. And the good thing is that is also something that's shared within the company, within the locker rooms, within the writing rooms themselves. And that's kind of how everybody else kind of kept their chins up, because everybody felt the same, and everybody
We're all in the same boat. Yep.
Yes. Everybody felt that, and everybody has the same question marks that you and I currently are discussing. That those question marks echo through the writing room, through the locker room, even all the way down to medical. And
yeah,
and that's telling of perhaps what should change. But again, like, I'm not the one in control of anything. We can only control so much, and I can only control my output, and that's just like the start of the conversation. That's why I want to present the more positive sense of this release. Because again, do I really have that much to be angry about? I don't. I had a good relationship with Vince. I have a great relationship with Hunter. Same with Miss Man, with Bruce. With Paul. So many people that I've got an absolutely great relationship with, and it was never about like whether or not people like me or not.
Right.
It never had anything to do with that. But sometimes things don't pan out.
So what do you think it is? Like, what have you been able to kind of like attempt to put your finger on, of like what slipped between the cracks here? Like, what was the disconnect? Was it something from Vince's perspective or from Hunter's perspective? I understand that they generally can have pretty different perspectives on different talent, and you see that happen from NXT up to the main roster often. But have you, like, what do you think it is that happened?
So I think we have to kind of go back to the start of my NXT career. I remember the match that I had with Velveteen, and that was a match that put me on the card. On the map, sorry. And I remember Hunter telling me a while ago, about like a year and a half ago, we had a talk. It's like, even a year and a half ago, I was kind of going like, what are we doing? Because it's starting, stopping. Every time I thought we were going somewhere, we didn't. Every time I saw the fans get behind me, or the ratings were positive, no one pulled the trigger on it. So I'm drinking kombucha, and everything is.
It's all right. I have pregnancy heartburn,
there
so I'm kind of in the same boat.
And Hunter told me that even back then, Vince was like, I want that guy. And then it was, I think, the match with Johnny, when I came back, and again, I want that guy. And Hunter kept saying, no, I have to have this program with him. I want him to finish, write that out. And then eventually, I think it was somewhere in February that I got a call from Matt Bloom saying, you move up. And it was me, Johnny Tommaso, and Trevor Ricochet. And best times those 3-4 months leading up to WrestleMania were my favorite time that I've had in the WWE. Me and Trevor were such a well-oiled machine. We were doing Raw on Monday, SmackDown on Tuesday, because we were still on Tuesday back then, and then NXT on Wednesday. We got Thursday off, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday back on live events. And I just felt like I was so in the zone. I loved it. Like, that's the part about this whole business. I love the live events. I love the travel. I love it. I'm one of the few people that don't complain about that part. Sure, the travel can be tough and like flights canceling. I'll complain about that, but never the concept of what it is that we're doing, because that's what I embrace. That's what I love. That's what I'm used to. And I remember sitting down with Vince for the very first time, because Heyman was like, look, you gotta go in and talk with him. And I always wanted to talk to him because I find it very important in any job I've ever had to have a good relationship with the people in charge. I want them to know who I am, and I want them to know that I care and that I'm involved, which I did. And it was a very positive conversation. And Vince was full of praise, and words were being said in terms of like, where he sees me going, what part of the card he sees me, and it was, upper positions, and everything was super positive. And he repeated that over several course of my interactions with Vince. A lot of promises, a lot of like, this is what I want to do with you. That's what I'm, but the translation was never there. So obviously at one point you start doubting yourself. Mm-hmm. And to the point where I think it was after Money in the Bank, the Mysterio storyline, where I kept running out and getting beat up. And at one point I was kind of like, okay, what are we doing? And I knocked on the door. This is about the fourth, fifth conversation. I tried to get in there with him very regularly, talk to him at least.
Yeah, it's difficult though.
Yes, very difficult. I sometimes have to wait 4 or 5 hours before I can get in, and it is what it is. Again, that's just the nature of the beast there. And you either want to do that because you care that much, or you don't. And it's both is fine. I just chose to, do it because my whole thing is I want to die on my own sword. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm gonna do everything I can. So at the end of it, and maybe that's also why I have peace with it. I know on my end, I tried everything. I literally tried every single thing. Sat down with him. He told me, I think you're so intriguing. I think your look is great. I think your style is great, but there's something about you that right now I'm trying to figure out. And I think that is very telling. The whole, I'm trying to figure it out, but I don't know what it is I'm trying to figure out. And that's okay. That's fine. We got time. Let's figure it out. So he sent me home. I came back with Kevin Owens and we did the storyline, and everything that I created, that little vignette on my Instagram and all that stuff, I made that myself because I wanted to show that, look, I'm invested in this. I've always tried to kind of have a correlation between my social media and my character because I find that important. I find that it's also something that Undertaker told me at one point. He said, the business has changed nowadays. You cannot be 100% character anymore because people are not going to buy that. You're going to have to lower the threshold here and there and kind of let them in every once in a while because it's just different. It's not back in the day. It's not as protected anymore. And people, need to care for the person behind the character to an extent as well. So, I was trying to keep a 95, 90%, 10% ratio. Every once in a while you'll see a picture of my wife, especially when I was that character. And, it went well for 2 weeks. And then somehow in the pipeline, something changed. And Aleister Black, who was never seen in either a suit or his wrestling gear, was standing at Raw Underground in his shorts, in his champion's short, because no one told me. I found out as the show was about to start, this is what we're doing. And I remember going, what? This is not what we set out to do. And I, spoke to Vince. No, he was adamant on it. This is what we're doing. I'm like, okay, cool. And everything went downhill. And fans saw it. I saw it. Creative saw it. Writers saw it. It went to the point where I sat down with our VP, and I said, look, something's got to change. This is not going right. This is not going good. I have been here for a year and a half, and I feel like I've just been ping-ponged continuously. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not someone who quickly gives up. And even then, I didn't give up. I'm not going to give up. Again, I'm dying on my own sword. I'm gonna go. I want to go out the way I want to go out. I want to make sure that when I leave, I've tried every single thing, and I can't blame myself, right? So, again, I had a conversation with Bruce Pritchard and Vince that lasted about 30, 45 minutes. And it was a long talk, but it was a good talk, a very good talk. Again, full of praise, complimented him on my ability to always be honest with them whilst being respectful. He he complimented me on my manners and just saying how much he appreciated my creative thought process. And he also understood that there were things during my time in the main roster that did not go the way he wanted to go. And he said, I'm sorry for that. I apologize, but let's do it this way. I'm going to send you home for a bit, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We're going to get some separation between you and Kevin Owens. And then when you come back, you know, we're off to the races. I was supposed to come back Rumble time, I think either on Rumble or right before Rumble, not sure. And obviously that never came to fruition. So I sat home for 7 months. And I think that necked me. I think that's the part. And I kept asking, what are we doing? I don't think I've ever been more frustrated, 7 months sitting home than I've been in my life for my entire career. That was the most frustrating
You feel like you're being held hostage.
Yeah, there's two sides to that coin. One is, and that I did that, hired an acting coach, a different one, ducked down into my family history because I wanted this character, this dark father character, to really, I wanted it to be in the same wheelhouse as what you had, but I wanted it to be a complete thing. So I wanted to present it with something that was real, authentic, that came from my childhood, and maybe more so my father's childhood, right? So, and not that I'm going to dive into that part. That's a conversation for a different time, because I think we can fill an entire podcast with that story. But so I wanted it to be real. And hired a different nutritionist, and because I was looking back and I said to myself, man, you've been depressed for I let myself go, physically, a lot, right? And I was just so unhappy mentally, but I was in denial about it, and I didn't want to be in denial about it. So I was like, okay, if they're gonna send me home longer, then at least, again, same mindset, die on your own sword. Don't die on theirs, die on your own sword. So step it up more, and put in the work, put in everything, present it, wrote the vignettes, pitched the vignettes. They tweaked it, tweaked some things. Initially, we wanted to do it with real actors, but COVID, money, all that stuff. And so one of the writers, and I said, hey, what if we do it as a children's book, as the Babadook, basically? And then at the time, Candyman, Jordan Peele's Candyman's trailer was there, and they used the little paper puppets, and he sent it to me. He said, what do you think of this? I'm like, if we can pull it off, that'd be so cool. And we were, because the vignettes were goddamn brilliant, right? I thought they were brilliant. And one of the things that I thought was really cool with the vignettes is that Deadline.com did a small little note on them, because apparently they boosted the ratings, and I was really happy. And I send that to everyone. It's look, what we're doing, it's working, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to be very involved in the entire process of the Dark Father. I wanted to do this completely different. I told Merch, give me ideas, show me what you guys have, let's talk, show me the numbers, because I knew I used to do good on Merch, especially in NXT. I used to do great on Merch.
Yeah.
But I want to be involved more. If we're going to do this, then let's do this. Again, everybody was on board. Everybody loved it. 2 weeks before I came back and struck Big E in the head, I had to sit down with Vince. I hadn't seen him in a while, so I just wanted to say hi to him and just kind of talk to him. It was a good, pleasant conversation. He was his normal self. Same things were said. He liked it. He was he was ready to do it. He said, are you ready to do it? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, you look good. We're gonna get to it, right? So and that's what we did. And then 1 week later, actually 3 days ago, I'm sitting in the gym and I'm stretching out, and I see a certain name on my phone calling me, and I'm like, why is this person calling me? So I pick up, and it was a very distinct voice. And this person also did not understand, but this person had to let me go. And they invoked their right for the 90-day clausal. And it was a sense of relief almost, because, mind you, they let my wife go on the reasons that are very questionable. And everything got sorted out. Everything is fine. Everything is okay. But they called me, and they're like, look, we understand this is putting you in a tough spot. I said, no, this is my career. Spoke about it with her. This is business between you and her. Does Tom, her husband, have a opinion on it? Sure, he does. Does Aleister Black, the professional, do? Nope. He's ready to go to work. All I want to do is work. All I want to do is create. All I want to do is present. You have to be a professional. Even in the darkest of times, you still have to be a professional. It's just what it is. Because at the end of the day, if I don't, then what have I gained? All this work for nothing. All this like resilience for nothing. And she agreed. So, and then sat home for 7 months, did my absolute best. I don't think there was a week where I wasn't trying to get in touch with either Bruce or anyone from creative, or like had conversations with them, making sure that I was on top of things. The vignettes were supposed to air after Mania. They didn't. And I was like, okay, show after Mania. It's a busy book show. I get it, sure. Right? 2 weeks of vignettes and then another week of no vignette. And then I started to go, what is going on? Why are we not, because at that point, you're also not really presenting the audience with the idea that you have a lot of trust in this, because you're already kind of like breaking it up.
Yep.
Again, I was assured that nothing was wrong, nothing was going on. And 2 weeks of vignettes, last vignette, I kicked Biggie. And then a week later, obviously I was on TV. They were kind of like, no, we're letting it breathe a little bit because we feel we got a lot of out of the kick with E. And then 4 days later, there we go. And again, I know why. Not something I'm going to discuss here, because that's also something I want to talk about in a different light. But sure. It's and I know the way I'm sounding, and I know the way that this all sounds it sounds super like, what the negative. But again, I'm not focusing on the negative part. Mm-hmm. I like, all it did for me was present to me how resilient I am as a person, how creative I can be with shackles on, mm-hmm. and how I can like create within the boundaries that I'm given, and that my mind can go, in a lot of good places when I'm being held down, so. Yeah, I didn't get to do what I was promised to do. And a lot of the things that were promised to me were not fulfilled. But I had a good experience. I had a good 4 or 5 years. I have a good life. I met my wife there.
Amen.
I met people like you there. I made so many good connections. And I just can't be mad. Maybe it's still coming. I don't know, but I like I said, when I got released with all the stuff that was stacked up against me, and all the hoops that made me jump through, and the questionable bipolar style booking and stuff like that, and up and down. I'm still here.
Yeah,
and it's all good.
It's sort of like, even when I look back, because I feel, a similar way, in the sense of like, I left the way that I left, and there were issues that I had with certain things, but I don't have any ill will. I feel like same thing. I walked away with a great career, met my husband there. I have a ton of positives, but there are certain things, like the things that you're talking about. I mean, from the creative aspect, from the lack of attention span, so to speak, to be able to really keep giving somebody a legitimate push. And you were such a prime example of that, of the like, start, stop. I mean, you talk about those initial vignettes that you had been doing from the back rooms, and not being able to, get on the same page with creative, and wanting to, say different things or whatever. But and even the stuff with Big E that you were doing, I think that this is just like the telltale sign of no interest in long-term storytelling, which can be incredibly frustrating.
It seems like they're looking for, it either connects on the first go, or we do not engage with it anymore. And that's obviously, you can't like, that's
it's not fair.
No, that's a 1 in a million. And you can't force those moments. You can't force, those characters to, have that. There have been so many rare examples of that, actually, a brand new character debuting. And immediately from the
And they
get-go. It
stick
is a
with it.
$1 million franchise. Everything has to build. Everything has to slowly get into it. People have to get adjusted, have to understand it, and have to be able to sink their teeth in. And as they sink their teeth in, start caring for it. And as they start caring for it, they want to invest in it. It just doesn't. And again, I could be very wrong, but in that same vein, there was a lot of extremely hardworking people in that company. I've always had a good relationship with our writers, with creative, with people making calls, with the John Laurinaitis of the company and everyone, medical referees, the locker room. There was a lot of people that work their absolute ass off, even when they don't agree with it. They work hard, and and that deserves respect.
Absolutely. And it's sometimes it's a matter of, wanting to trust the process, but then also trying to follow your gut instinct where you're like, wait, maybe this isn't going the way that I feel that it is, but you assume that maybe they have a better thought out process about how things are going to go. And you're just sort of stuck in limbo during that. I actually just this morning, I was like flipping through some new stuff and saw an interview that my John did. And he was basically saying that same thing. I mean, you look at the way that the Shield came out, and we've not seen someone get a push the way that the Shield did.
Yeah, they were huge
in forever. And because they stuck with it and they let it go and they let it breathe and they let those guys do their thing. But we've really not seen it since then. And that was 9 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and like you can speculate and guess about as to why you want as long as you want, but it's futile. It is what it is. And maybe it will change, maybe it won't change. And like you said something about like wanting to trust the process and stuff like that. And I think that's also one of the things that I made a mistake with in the beginning, because I first moved up and I didn't want to be that guy that immediately like complained. But like I said, the room promos, me and Paul always wanted them to like evolve. They didn't. So as much as Paul was fighting for them, I was always kind of like, oh, okay, we'll just do this. And some of them were fun. Some of them weren't fun. Some of them didn't make any sense. And, and the only thing that I always tried to do is, I always liked the idea of Aleister, and Vince liked that idea too, by the way, that he has like a little bit of like a precognitive ability where he can kind of like briefly see into the future. So I would use the lights in the room as a precursor to who my opponent was going to be, because it would be the color of their gear and stuff like that. And I would say certain words that would hint at my coming or my opponent for like next week and stuff like that. That's the only way I could kind of like have like, I guess, 5% control over what I'm doing, what I was doing. I did the same thing with anything I've ever done. There has only been maybe 2 promos on the main roster where I had complete control. The one was where I stepped out from the darkness into the light, and I cut the promo about AJ Styles, and I said, God, what was the line? You're gonna wish Undertaker buried you deeper than 6 feet if I get back up, something like that. And I stepped back into the darkness. And other than that, everything was always like, very like formulated, and and you try your best, and creative tries their best, but it's difficult because I can understand the standpoint of the companies. Well, we're this big company, we have sponsors, so we have to control what you're saying, but it doesn't leave any room for like genuine emotion. It doesn't leave any room for like and some people are great at it, like Mike is phenomenal at it, like Joe's phenomenal at it, Roman's phenomenal at it. I feel like I'm a better natural speaker in terms of like, hey, say this, just mention that, and then I can go off. And it's something that I feel, and I see a lot of people, they struggle with that, and it takes away the heart and soul of the being genuine and having a genuine emotion behind, verbalizing yourself. So, it's there's a lot of things that you could say, but I do think that the people who are able to thrive there, they are absolute athletes, absolute phenomenal people when it comes to like, character stuff. And, I tried my best to to get to that, but alas, it was not meant to be. And again, I have no regrets on it, anything at all. It's and that that's what I said. Like, I tried literally everything and I said this on the phone to our creative team as well. When, like, one of the last talks, I said, look, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. Just in case this doesn't pan out, at least I know that I literally did everything I could. Yep. I did everything. I tried everything. And that's, like I said, maybe that's also why I feel positive about my experience, because I tried everything.
Yeah, leave no stone unturned, put in all that work. Yes. What is your relationship with Paul Heyman now? Have you guys spoken since this?
Yep. Yeah. He reached out to me on the day that it happened. It was very sad. Paul has always said to me, Tom, I think that you're 5 years ahead of the business. And I think that's also, as he's like, as brilliant as I think you are, I think that's also sometimes, your biggest issue is that you're so far ahead mentally with these things that people have to catch up to it. And he still believes, he's like, I still believe that you're going to do great things. And, we're far from done. I am absolutely far from done. I'm so excited. I have, in these past 3 days, there's been so many knocks on the door, no pun intended. There's been so many people reaching out and so many cool opportunities come in. I'm genuinely, like, super excited. And I, for the first time in a very long time, I don't feel anxiety when I have to think about, like, my profession. I feel like genuine excitement.
That's awesome.
As to, it becomes, like, very frustrating if all you think about is, like, did he like it, or are you guys okay with it? Like, it becomes the process is not let's create. The process is, I hope this works.
Yeah, I hope that this one person likes the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's important that he does.
Of course.
It's very important that he does. But like I said, like, right now is, like, one of those moments in my life where, like, I spoke to my dad this morning, and he was asking me as well. I was like, how are you feeling? I was like, I feel great. Like, with all these, like, people emailing me and, like, calling me up and, hey, listen, XYZ. I'm like, you're damn right. It's fun. It's fun again. And not that it was never not fun, but the last 2 years, and I've said this before, felt like a slow death. Mm-hmm. It really did. Despite my best efforts, despite, keeping my chin up, and despite, trying to work my hardest, I feel like I was slowly killing myself. So
do you feel like, I guess it's this relief to, as much as you can take that equity that was built into Aleister Black, but shed that mold and now get back to being Tommy End and doing all the things that you want to do. So what are we doing? What's the plan?
Well, so, I always feel that, Tommy and Aleister Black, like the WWE was able to give Tommy End, like, an injection into, like, what I wanted. Like, if I could have had Tommy End the way I wanted to have Tommy End with production value, it would have been Aleister Black. So sure, there is like there's similar things between the two things, but there's also a lot of differences where Aleister Black was more of a fabricated stoic character, and unfortunately, the thing that I couldn't really show is that this Dark Father character was based more on the, what's the word I'm looking for? More on the, like, the reckless intent that, like, the Tommy End character used to have, and the more brawling style, aggressive. And, like, I think if you take, if you look at the way that I competed against Kevin Owens, that aggressive style, that, like, the grunting and the kicking, the way that I did it there, and are much more, like, alike with, like, the more refined, crisp martial arts style that, like, the Aleister Black character had, that was more, like, in balance, and the bad guy version is not in balance, and he just obliterates people. And and I'm trying to also, because that's the other thing, right? Because you ask a really good question, like, who is Tommy End? I've been thinking, I was like, who is he actually? Because I've poured so much of what that was into, like, what WB created Aleister Black to be. I kind of, like, put a bunch of clay on it and molded it, that I now have to like lose all that mold and put different on it. And I'm going to use parts of, things that I've already developed that I couldn't present, because you saw 1% of what was supposed to be. And there's a lot of clay left on the workbench for that I can now apply and use. And sure, it's all in the same wheelhouse, so it's recognizable, it's understandable. It's not all of a sudden Aleister Black is going to come out with Tommy End is going to come out with completely different colors, and is a flower power dude that is full of love and stuff like that. No, because and that one makes sense, and that's not what people would expect from me, and that would that would create a distance, that would create a barrier between me and an existing fan base, and I don't want that.
Of course. Yeah, of course. You got to work with what you got and then just build upon that. And like I said, you use that equity that you've been able to build over the past 4 or 5 years, and now you get to go apply it to whatever the hell it is that you decide to do. And as you look outside WWE, and now there's all of these options, I mean, how could you not be excited about all of these other opportunities for you to just creatively dig in? I think a lot of people are excited to see that. I think there's nothing more exciting. I was actually kind of talked to Heath Slater just recently. I'm like, man, it's so cool seeing everybody working in all these different places. And, despite some of the circumstances of people being let go and whatever, but now seeing people thrive in you can just see sort of that happiness of just getting back to why you started doing this to begin with. Right.
I don't think that the business will ever be, at least not at the moment, the business will never be bigger than the WWE as of right now. Mm-hmm. But the landscape is not solely dominated by WWE, which is a great thing. I see so many good talents. I look at AEW and I'm like, I see a phenomenal newer generation, and combining with the older generation that I grew up with, even watching guys like Chris Daniel and Kazarian and stuff like that. It's crazy. And then seeing dudes is your husband and Omega going at it, and then there's all these other independent companies, and not just the independent companies, but guys companies like Ring of Honor and Impact, and everybody has their own identity, and I think that is a very important thing, because it's very difficult to have an identity in a landscape or a business that was solely dominated by the WWE. And but they're doing it. They're doing it, and that speaks volumes of the talent and the creative vision that is out there.
It's so cool. Why do you think it ultimately kind of at least feels like it's sort of that kiss of death, making that jump from NXT to the main roster in WWE? Just seems to happen time and time again.
I think, I think one of the main issues is that there is too many cooks in the kitchen, whereas Hunter has a vision and oversees the entire vision with his team. It's that kombucha, man.
Got to get those probiotics.
Yep, damn it. And he has a vision, and he's close. He always puts his ear to the ground, and he communicates very, very one-on-one with his talent, and everybody shares his vision. Where I feel that on the main roster, a lot of people think that they know Vince's vision, and they start changing people up before they change people up, or they haven't closely followed the people that are being brought up, and it just gets lost in translation. One of the things that I also think is that, and I also think that was in my case, is that, Vince sees certain individuals and is completely mesmerized by them. And then when he has them, he's kind of okay, where do I place you? And I feel the time spent with where do I place you kind of loses it, because it's taking too long for people to be placed. And whether that is because the rotation is too quick, or people don't have a creative vision coming in, or people rely too much on letting the main roster do your creative work for you. Who knows? I think it's a combination of all three. I don't believe in one party always being the complete blame for anything. I think when you come in, you're a professional. You need to have a vision for yourself. You need to have a vision. You need to have ideas continuously. I've written bookworks on stories, promos, and like, let's put it this way. I was never empty-handed. But, you know, even when you're not empty-handed, it just sometimes doesn't always translate the way that, you know, you wanted to translate, or it doesn't go in the vision that you wanted to go, because at the end of the day, there's one man in charge of the vision. And if that vision doesn't pan out the way that it should pan out, then it's hard to stay afloat.
Sure. Yeah. No doubt at all. Okay. So on the other side of things, going back to all these other flourishing companies and the way wrestling is nice and shiny and bright right now, who do you want to work with? Who do you want to get in the ring with?
Oh boy. Okay. So I want to get in a ring with Moose, Callahan, Mox, Omega, Chris Daniels. My God. There is such an array of like crazy talent. I think Jungle Boy is great. I want to get in a ring with Christian. I would love to compete against Christian. Hobbs. I think Hobbs is awesome. Brian Cage. Man, like there is just a list of people endlessly that is just, you know, they're just killing it. Like, and it's just cool to see that so many of the people that when I transitioned towards the WWE that have continued their path and have become, you know, better and better. I remember seeing certain individuals, and, you know, when I left, they were just starting, you know, like for instance, Jeff Cobb, you know, at the time of me almost transitioning to WWE, he was just starting out. I met him a year before I moved to WWE, and he was just starting out training, and now he's killing it in New Japan. You know, he's the man. You know, a guy relatively, I wouldn't say unknown, but like Brody King, right? Brody King from Ring of Honor. Homicide. I would love to get in there with Homicide. I think Homicide is the OG. I love Homicide. Tons of respect. Eddie Kingston is another one. And we briefly spoke, me and Kingston. So,
he's the best.
You know, there's just, I almost want to grab my phone and give you a complete rundown because I'm just in that position where like I've been watching so much wrestling, and I've been like making so many notes that as soon as this conversation is over, I'm gonna run to my phone and go like, wait, what did I write down? Who did I write down? Because the thing is, there's just so much. There's so much good stuff out there right now. There is tremendous stuff.
What about New Japan? I keep feeling like people I feel like I've seen that a lot since your release, of people want to see you in New Japan as well.
I think that I think it's no secret that I have a lot of love for New Japan. I think in several interviews I mentioned that I never grew up watching WWE. I watched New Japan on Eurosport. Yeah. So when you guys, when AEW had Yuji Nagata, I was pretty envious of Mox, because that was one of the guys that I, you know, looked up to when I was younger. New Japan would be phenomenal. Yeah. You know, I think like I love Japan. I miss Japan. Even thinking about it gives me butterflies, because I feel never did I feel more like a professional wrestler, and I can say that now again.
Like isn't that nice?
Like a professional wrestler. Then when I stepped off the plane in Narita Airport, and I would drive down to Yokohama, and I would go into the dojo, and I would start training. It was great. Mm-hmm. I had great memories of Japan. And so we don't know what the future holds at this point. Well, I mean, I know certain parts of my future, but I'm not going to spill the beans here, unfortunately.
Fine.
No exclusives yet. There's just so much to do, you know. Like I left the WWE. I left the independent scene, and there was stuff happening. You know, the foundations were there. 4 or 5 years later, there was an entire big company on the side. There was multiple companies still active and working, being on television. And it makes me smile, because the business is, for that part, is in good shape.
Yeah.
And I feel there's a renaissance coming. I feel there's something's brewing, and it feels good.
Yeah. It's simmering. It's ready to go. 100%.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm very excited for you. I can tell a lot of other people are obviously like very supportive of you between your peers, your fan base, all that. I mean, everyone is really excited to see where you land,
Yeah.
to really have you be back in the driver's seat of your own career and take those reins again and start just kicking more ass.
Well, I'm excited to do it, and I thank you
Yeah.
very much for having me on your show and
Yeah.
hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, it was so good to see you. Really
was
good
good
to
to
see
see
you.
you too.
And I'm glad that you are just in like such a good headspace with everything. And you have such a great attitude about everything that's gone down. And I think that just lends into you being an absolute professional in what you do. And now the future is wide open for you, dude.
Thank you very much, Renee. I appreciate you having me and
Yeah.
saying all that. Thank you.
Thanks.